Hey everybody, today I want to talk about plants for sandy soil. So here in Michigan, anybody who lives along the shoreline is very familiar with sandy soil, and the big drawback with sandy soil is everything runs through it. So if you give it water, the water just runs through. Any fertilizer or any nutrients just tend to get washed out, and that makes it really hard sometimes to have plants that will take in those locations. And so it's really important that you pick plants that are kind of more suited for those type of environments, and also doing some amending on your soil. So I'll talk about the amending of the soil later. I'm going to start out with kind of my favorite go-to plant for sandy conditions. And if you have a sunny spot, Sedum is one of those. It's just a no-brainer because not only does it not need much water, it doesn't like much fertilizer. So it's a wonderful one because it's also very versatile. So there's some that are more ground covery, like this one. So you can get them in kind of pinks, yellows. I think I've seen some creamy white colors as well. Same thing with some of these upright ones. So this is more of an mounded type, so it gets like a nice ball when it starts flowering. And then there's also some more vase-shaped ones, more upright ones like this one here. This one gets really nice kind of raspberry red flowers, so you get a good variation in both the color, and then like this one, really nice kind of cherry brown type of foliage on it. So good variety there. So definitely a plant that's a go-to. And if you are somebody who tends to kill plants with neglect, you forget to water, you forget to feed, Sedum's a really good one for you to put in your sunny spots because it's kind of a no-brainer and it'll take care of itself. So that's one go-to. Another really easy one is Echinacea. So I grabbed one of our last Echinaceas that we have, and this comes in such great colors. So this is more of the purple one. This is more closely related to the native variety, but you can get them in yellows and oranges and reds, really gorgeous colors. Great for the pollinators. You can leave the seed pods up for the birds. Really nice one. Once it's established, you don't have to do much with it. Don't need much fertilizer. It's going to do great in that sandy soil as long as it gets a little bit of moisture here and there, but they're usually pretty darn easy. Another easy one, I kind of tend to go for yarrow as well. Yarrow is one of those plants that it can actually be a little bit of a weed with certain varieties. A lot of the newer varieties are definitely more contained. They don't spread quite as much or reseed quite as much. But you can see like this one here has a nice yellow flower, but there's some really cool reddish colored ones, pink ones, white ones, and they're really quite beautiful. And that's another one that you don't have to do too much with. You do want to watch out though, like pay attention to the size, because there's some that stay really low, and then there's some that can get quite large and tall. They can, they can get a little floppy sometimes. So something to think about there. Another one for sunny locations is Russian sage. That's another one that doesn't need much fertilizer, doesn't need much water, gets quite large, has those beautiful kind of silvery blue flowers. I don't have any to show you right now. We're selling out of a lot of our plants right now because we only have a couple weeks left in the season. So I don't have one to show you, but it is a really easy one. The size is really nice too. If you want to take up a little extra space, it's one that gets to a decent size. Another one of my favorites is the hardy geranium. So those they're not like the geraniums that you see for annuals. They kind of just get these kind of nice little mounds, and then they get these flashes of color. Most of them rebloom as well, and they're good ones. Like if you have a sandy spot or like a little rock garden or a little rocky outcropping, they can manage their way in those conditions. So I love putting those in those spots because it's another one that's low care. That's all you do is, in the fall or spring, you just take out any of the dead stuff, but otherwise I don't really do anything with that one. So love that one. Those are the plants I default to in sandy locations, but there are a lot more. So you could consider like an allium. That one gets a nice flower on it, just a ball-shaped flower that looks really, really great. And it blooms kind of in the summertime. It's kind of in the onion family or chive family. So if you've seen chives, you're familiar with those flowers, although a lot of the newer alliums get nice big flowers on them. And if you like those kind of globe-shaped flowers, this is another really good one, an echinops. So this is kind of like a thistle-y type plant. So it has really picky leaves, and then it gets these beautiful blue flowers. Also, another similar one to this would be the eryngium. So both of those are really good in those sandy conditions. Again, any of these plants I'm talking about, they may take a year to kind of get established. So you're going to want to make sure that you're taking a little extra care of them for that first season. But after that, they tend to be able to hold their own with, just a little bit of supplemental water. And I'm going to move this one because it is picking me in the arm right now. So another one, deer resistant, because ouch, it hurts. Put that down here. Another one is garden phlox. So this is an improvement on the old-fashioned David, which is a beautiful white variety. This one, I like it because it reblooms a lot. So it has a really long bloom time. It's also quite powdery mildew resistant. A lot of phlox is going to get powdery mildew early in the season. If this one gets it, it's going to be a little later than some of the older varieties. So that's a really nice feature of this one. And you can't beat phlox as far as its color performance. performance, and it will let you know if it does need water. You'll see wilt in those leaves, and if you get it water soon enough, it'll bounce right back. So something to keep in mind, and also gives you a little bit of height. So it's got that mid-range height, like this one here gets 28 to 30 inches. So good height for that garden, and then gives you room to be able to plant some things in front of it as well. So consider that one. Daylilies are another one too. So let me put this down. And daylilies are kind of one of those workhorse plants. They can just hang out anywhere, especially here in Michigan. So this one is called Big Time Happy, and it just has a nice kind of light yellow flower on it. This one blooms all season as well. And daylilies are available in a lot of colors. I always look for the rebloomers though, because I like to be able to get as much flower power out of them as possible. But when it comes to those sandy soils, they tend to be able to hold up really, really well. Two other plants I'm going to mention are lavender and buddleia, or butterfly bush. They're ones that don't necessarily do real well here because we're on the border of zone 4 and 5, so a lot of times our winters take those plants out. But if you're in a little bit warmer climate, those are easy go-tos for people. They don't like that wet soil, they don't like being in damp conditions, so that extra drainage is really helpful for those plants. And another one that is a bit of a surprise, because it normally would grow in a boggy, wet area, is the hardy hibiscus. So this one here is called Berry Awesome. It's the Summerific series. And one good thing about the hardy hibiscus is that it tends to get a really extensive root system. So after its first season and after it is able to establish those roots, it's able to find usually enough water. Now in sandy conditions, you can't expect it to get to its full size, might not have as many branches, but they do grow, they have a nice habit, and will keep flowering even in those kind of less than ideal conditions. So another one to consider that normally I would not have thought of that, because every time you hear about hardy hibiscus, the native ones, they grow along river beds, they tend to like that boggy, wet soil, put it in, wherever you're super wet. But hey, that's one that will make it in some sandy soil as long as you can get it established. For my other videos in this series, I had gone to the Easyscapes website for inspiration. It's put together proven winners, really good way to find plants that might do good in your conditions. And they do have one recipe specifically for sandy soil. So I'm going to tell you exactly what they recommend. So two of them that I didn't mention yet were Veronica and Salvia. So those are two plants that you can put in that sandy soil. You do want to give them some time to get established, but they will give you beautiful pink, purple, and white flowers. And they are both varieties that if you shear them back, they'll resprout and rebloom for you. So easy plant to take care of as well. And I think they're both deer resistant too, so that's kind of a plus too. They also recommend the daylily, so I mentioned that one. And then they also talk about Baptisia. And Baptisia is one that gets a good root system after it's established. So love the spring flowers on that one as well. I've talked about it in previous one, and I think that would be a really beautiful one, especially if you're on the lakefront, because those leaves on it are kind of coin-shaped and they kind of rustle in the wind, look a little bit like an aspen when the wind's blowing on them. So I would recommend checking out a Baptisia as well. And the flowers are fantastic, and they get really cool seed pods at the end of the season. I've got one over there. Maybe I'll get some video and show you exactly what those seed pods look like right now. And it's a young one. It's only been in the ground for a year. They do get pretty big. So it's a great plant to consider. Now, if you're a new gardener or you just moved into a location with sandy soil and you're really nervous about what to plant, I'd say if you got a sunny spot, start with the Sedum. It's one of those no-brainers. It's going to be very, very forgiving. Just make sure you don't overwater it. Don't give it a lot of fertilizer, and that'll get you started and give you some confidence in what you're growing there. If you have a shady spot, I think my pick would probably be the hosta, because the hosta can handle a good amount of neglect. So it can handle too much water, and it can also handle a good bit of drought as well. So you don't have to worry about the water issue quite as much. I would give it fertilizer at least maybe once a season, usually early in the season. I usually use a time release, and that would be the case with most of these plants, except for the Sedum, maybe the Echinacea. But otherwise, you don't have to do too much with hostas as well. The only thing with the hosta, do watch out, the deer and the slugs love them. And if you're going to use Sluggo or one of those slug pellet type deterrents or baits, just use a little bit. Don't cover the ground with it. What I usually do is I just put a couple of pellets around each plant if I notice any kind of holes on them. Sometimes you can do it preventatively if you know you have slugs, but if you're not sure if you have slugs, you can just wait until you see the holes. Usually they show up though. The slugs can usually find the hostas. However, in a drier location, there might be fewer slugs than if you were in a really wet location. So those are my tips. Hopefully you found it helpful. I will see you guys all very, very soon in the next video.